So now we are finally introducing our two speakers. The first speaker is our former Congressman Lee Zeldin, what was supposed to be our governor of New York. There is not a day I don't wake up and get pissed off watching the news and say, if Lee Zeldin was governor, this would not be happening. So I just admire him so much. He came so close, and because of his running, I really believe is the reason why we were able, through New York, to save the House and keep that Republican. He brought such energy across the state and enthusiasm, the likes that I have never seen. And it was contagious, and I certainly appreciate it. And he has not stopped since Election Day. He literally is gone all the time somewhere. He's right now helping our President Trump go back into office. He's all over the country, working across the country, trying to help. Also, he's doing great things across the state. I was, as I mentioned earlier, he helped our local club with a Zeldin's Cares project for the stockings, but he also, we had a local shelter that he was able to secure thousands and thousands of dollars worth of coats and equipment so that the individuals there could be warm for the winter. And I just really appreciate what you're doing across the state and for the community, Lee. It's just outstanding. So it's my great honor and my great privilege to introduce Congressman Lee Zeldin.
I just got forwarded a couple of tweets that were posted while we're here. Now, arrests after police call level 3 mobilization as pro-Palestine protesters break through the barricades and are now facing off with the cops outside of Met Gala in New York City as part of Day of Rage. Now, American flag burned as protesters chant "Free, Free Palestine" on 107th Infantry War Memorial on 5th Avenue in New York City during Day of Rage protest. We don't need these moments throughout our day to remind us the stakes of this time. We know that's why we're here. It's always, in my opinion, a great moment to be alive. This is an incredible moment for all of us to be as active as we possibly can, fully understanding the stakes and the consequences. Jack Martin's now elected to the state senate in 2010. Pat Gallivan, Tom O'Mara, a bunch of other state senators. We're all at freshman orientation in Albany. I remember somebody telling me, now that you're elected to the state senate, they said this to our group, now that you guys are elected to the state senate, people will start calling you senator. Doors will open for you that weren't open before. And just keep in mind that one day, you're not going to be here anymore, and the day after you leave, they're going to scrape the plaque with your name from outside of your office, and no one's going to remember who you are. I thought it was a good reminder because it is important when you are in office, when you are given a title, you are given power, that you stay grounded. You never forget where you come from, whether you are serving in elected office, you're Billy Joel singing about home in New York, you go and be successful in business or whatnot, you never forget where you come from. For all of us in this moment, we are relying on each other. Knowing this stake, the consequences if we possibly come up short. When I was on active duty, I was a paratrooper with the 82nd Airborne Division, and when we were jumping out of a plane, we would have people jump from 2 different doors at the same time, usually about a half second off, because they were trying to get about 60 people out the door. You have about a minute to get through the drop zone, and if you don't get out the door when you're supposed to, people will get hurt. The week before I jumped for the first time in Fort Benning, they actually had someone on active duty who did not properly hand off their static line to the jump master, and the worst thing imaginable happened to the jumper behind that person. It's really dangerous if you don't get out the door properly when it is your time. Right now, we're all relying on each other, and there are people all across this entire country relying on us, and we're relying on them. We see on the news these swing states where maybe President Trump, they say, is up by a point or 2. Who knows? And we were just together at the beginning of April, about a month ago, a great event down in New York City hosted by the New York State Republican Party. And I mentioned then that when I see a poll that says that maybe we're up by 2 points in Pennsylvania, John McLaughlin's probably the one person in this room who can convince me otherwise on any day of the week. He's a great pollster. When somebody tells me we're up 2 in Pennsylvania, I said, maybe we're not. Because they had this thing called universal mail-in balloting, and our party is boycotting it. They say maybe we're up 2 points in Nevada one day. I don't know if I could believe it. Because in Nevada, they had this thing called ballot harvesting. And our party's boycotting it. Chuck Schumer is the majority leader. Kamala Harris is the deciding vote because our party boycotted changes to early voting laws in the state of Nevada. So when a snowstorm ended up hitting on Election Day, we lost a Senate seat. Adam Laxalt wasn't a senator. We had a special election in Nassau County, the middle of February, 7 hours lost. Nassau County Republican Committee has an amazing organization of getting out the votes on a moment's notice. They could do it in 24 hours. They could put 700 people on the street. But when there's a massive snowstorm in the middle of February, there's only so much you could do. We're all relying on each other. And we're relying on all these people across the country that do their part. And they're relying on us to do ours. As I travel around the country, I'll tell you the rest of America is grateful for all of you for what you did to make sure that right now we don't have a Speaker Nancy Pelosi or a Hakeem Jeffries. That's because of what you did in your districts, winning hard-fought races in 2022, races that are on the ballot now this November, where we will decide control of the United States House of Representatives. We in New York, yes, this state with 3.5 million more Democrats than Republicans, this state that only is about 22% Republican, has not just that power, but that responsibility at this moment to do everything in our power to make sure that we don't have to deal with 3 more impeachments come 2025. When I was 18, I went off to college here in Albany. I joined the Army ROTC. We did something called a field leadership reaction course, which was at West Point. Now, all of us, these young 18-year-olds, 19-year-olds, we all thought we had it all figured out. We all should have been the squad leader. How dare you appoint Cadet so-and-so to be the squad leader? No one's better than me. There's 10 of us all saying that to each other, to ourselves. And they give you a mission. You have to get from one side of the course to the next, and you have a certain amount of time to do it. And if you don't do it, then all of your cadets, your unit's dead, you lost your equipment, the mission failed, and we didn't end up getting there. And we tried again, and we didn't get there again. And the problem was that there were 10 squad leaders. And then we realized there's actually multiple ways to get from this point to that point. So even though what I visualized of how to get to that promised land on the other side was correct, so was the squad leader's vision. But the problem, when all of us were operating individually, we ended up not getting there. Now, I don't love Trish Turner because of a title or her power. This has nothing to do, the woman doesn't have any negative traits that I see in some leaders that are repulsive and you can't follow them. I will follow Trish Turner anywhere. I am here tonight. I'm here tonight not just because it's fantastic to see so many faces, to thank all of you for all of your help. I'll just be blunt. The reason why I'm here tonight is because Trish called and asked me to be here tonight. That was it. I didn't have to ask any other questions. Trish called. And I don't know how many other people in this room have the same exact experience. I have some hands going up. Yeah. More about that in a moment. There's 4 moments that happened today, aside from what I just forwarded you, that's going on right now in New York City. Desecrating a war memorial, occupying bandwidth of law enforcement, put that aside. We started our day, we learned that Columbia University cancels their commencement. Now, if anyone here in this room was president of Columbia University, I would hope that we all would know instinctively what to do at that first moment that these protests, these riots ended up first starting. If you say that you have until 2 o'clock tomorrow afternoon to vacate the premise, that is a red line. You say if you're not out by 2 o'clock tomorrow, that means you're going to get suspended. That means if you're not out by 2:01 the next day, you're suspended. And after you spend day after day after day occupying your time instead of studying for finals, but instead start torturing other students, targeting students on college campuses across this country because they're Jewish. They pay their tuition and they want to get to the library, but they are denied entry because they're Jewish? In 2024? Man, I think that the president of Columbia University decided not to lead in this particular moment because the calculation was that it's easier to keep a job if you pander to these people. That's where we are in this moment. Kathy Hochul was asked, what are you going to do? What can you do? Would you call in the National Guard? Greg Abbott was asked. Ron DeSantis was asked. Governors of other states, in a moment like this is why you raise your hand to serve in the first place. There's a lot of easy times when you're in elected office. And it's nice, to have a little bit of balance. We have family. Not every single day, all day, every day has to be, a most difficult experience. It's very rewarding to be able to serve. But in that moment, if you're not going to want to step up to fight for that Jewish student who's being denied entry into a library, you aren't going to stand up to that university president who refuses to do the right thing. You are not going to fire that district attorney who's probably not going to end up prosecuting any of these crimes, even though these are laws that are on the books. If you are going to say that it is not your responsibility, you have nothing to do here. And excuse my language, I'm not in elected office anymore, so I'm able to speak a little bit freer. Get the f*** out of office. That was moment 1. Moment 2, we see our president going into court, dragged into court this morning. Again, he should be on the campaign trail going wherever he feels like he needs to go in order to get the vote out to be successful and win this November. If he feels like he needs to spend his day in Wisconsin or Minnesota or New Mexico or Arizona or Georgia, 6 months from yesterday is the election to decide the next president of the United States. I'm tired of all of us being lectured about attacks on democracy with what we are witnessing right now that is happening to this president. You want to lock him up for 1,000 years? You want to bankrupt him and his family? And the worst attack of democracy is the fact that they want to deny all Americans the right to choose for ourselves who to make the next president of the United States. Don't lecture any of us about attacks on democracy. And they have the 3rd highest ranking member of the Department of Justice sent to become an assistant district attorney in some county in Manhattan on a case that the Department of Justice investigated and declined to prosecute, a case that Alvin Bragg's predecessor declined to prosecute, a case that Alvin Bragg's office himself kept on a shelf, a misdemeanor that they're trying to elevate to a felony. We don't even know what the underlying charge really is. They wouldn't even tell the president's defense counsel who they were calling today as a witness so that they could prepare for today in the courtroom. They have a judge conflicted out of this case. His daughter is out fundraising, working for a company that makes money raising funds for Adam Schiff off of this case. And good luck finding a jury of your peers. As if we need all of these moments throughout our day to remind us why we're here in Albany tonight. As if we need reminders to know why we need to lean on each other to be successful and taking absolutely nothing for granted. Moment 3. Riley and I and a bunch of the state legislators and some coaches and some young athletes, we're all at the New York State Capitol today. Proposition 1 will be on the ballot this November. And too often, people go to vote and they aren't familiar enough with their choices on one side of the ballot, the candidates, the different offices. Maybe they go in to vote for president. They don't know who their candidates are for judges. I'll tell you, sometimes I've gone to vote, not familiar with all these different candidates running for judges. Now, I do what Jerry Kassar tells me to. So you just go vote right down the line for the Republican and conservative judges. It's good advice. You flip over the ballot, and they want to amend the New York State Constitution this November. And Kathy Hochul and the Democrats are claiming that this is an amendment to enshrine abortion rights. And if you read the amendment talks about all sorts of things that have absolutely nothing at all to do with abortion. When I read it and I see terms like ethnicity, nation of origin, gender expression, gender identity, I'm wondering how is it that they get away with saying that this is an amendment that is about enshrining an abortion law that in New York allows abortion until the end of the 9th month. We know people in our lives who consider themselves proudly to be pro-choice, and they oppose late-term partial birth abortions and non-doctors performing abortions. There are aspects of the current New York State law that New Yorkers, like 80% of New Yorkers, are on the same page saying that goes too far. In New York, they have already codified abortion in the end of the 9th month. And there are members of me, this is what drove me nuts, and this is why I called up Riley, and we put together today's press conference, because I saw someone in the media say that this was an amendment to enshrine abortion rights, and nothing else was said. Our activism this year is going to, in so many ways, determine the trajectory of this country and this state. There's a lot of bad news that we come in contact with as we go through our day, and it was discussed here tonight. From foreign policy to our border to the state of our economy. I love the fact that Trish found the one thing of growth in New York. I was wondering where she was going with that. Apparently you are the only form of growth right now in New York is this Federation of Republican Women. This was our 4th moment of the day. Moments aren't always what frightens us about the direction that this nation and this state are heading. We are going to get more reminders of how Joe Biden staying in the White House is bad for America, and it's bad for our families. And Kathy Hochul and one-party rule with supermajority assembly and Senate, the one-party rule in New York City, and what that means for quality of life and tackling illegal immigration. They want to give non-citizens the right to vote. When a court says that's unconstitutional, they appeal it to the New York State Court of Appeals, a New York State Court of Appeals that they have rigged with their own justices. This system right now is one where they feel like they haven't gone far enough enough to be able to allow transgendered boys to be able to compete against girls, or to access girls' locker rooms or girls' bathrooms, or to allow those who are illegally in our state and country to have rights just like all of us. And the way that they are doing it to implement the radical, woke, far-left agenda is to say that when our rights are in conflict with the rights that they are advancing from the furthest fringe left of their base, it is always the furthest fringe left of their base that is the superior human race at that moment. We are fighting for everything, but it warms our heart, all of us, to be here and seeing the amount of people who are here, not just knowing the stakes, but committing ourselves, leaning on each other to do everything in our power successfully to win this election on the front side of the ballot and the back side of the ballot, so that when we are back here next year, we are able to celebrate victory of all of these women candidates running for state legislature and Congress to ensure that they're in office. How great would it be to see Allison Esposito replacing the congressman in New York 18? To break that supermajority in the state Senate and the state Assembly. To see President Trump once again inaugurated as the 47th President of the United States. It's up to us in this room to do everything in our power to make it possible, motivated not just by what might be bad in our day, those moments that might be a deterrent for others but not for us. We use it as an inspiring rally cry to do everything in our power to successfully win this November, to do it on behalf of ourselves, our family, this state, and this country, because that flag and our freedom and our Constitution, our liberty, it's all on the line, and we refuse to give up an inch to those who are trying to take it all away. Thank you for your support. Thank you for everything you have done through the years. It means so much.